when Kim walked into my office to apply for food assistance, I could tell that she was in pain. She was wearing a neck brace and moving really slow, and her little daughter walked in behind her, and they sat at my desk. And she started to tell me her story. She told me that a few months back she'd been in a car accident. And as a result of the injuries that she had sustained, she had to undergo a series of back surgeries. And because of her time in and out of the hospital, she had missed so much work that she was fired from her job. And as we were filling out the application, at one point she paused and looked up at me and said, this is a completely new situation for me. I've always worked. She explained that even as a single mom who never received child support, she had always found a way. Even when times are tough, she never had to apply for assistance, but she had used the little money that she had saved up. She was completely broke. She watched as her cupboards became more and more empty until there was nothing there. She said that she didn't have any friends or family to loan her money or even to give her food, and she was hopeless. She said, that's the reason I'm here today. I don't know what else to do. And her story was heartbreaking, but that's not the reason I'm telling it to you today. You see, I work for the North Texas Food Bank, and my role for the food bank is to help people apply for SNAP. It's the program that used to be known as food stamps. And due to the nature of the questions on the application, we are quickly introduced to the very personal struggles that people face every day. And as hard as her story was to hear, it's not out of the ordinary for us. We hear 5 to 10 of these stories every day, and when you hear so many stories every day, day after day, year after year, it's not that you build up a tolerance to it, but there's only so much that the heart can process. And so while her story was heartbreaking, it was a typical day for me. But what really caught my attention, what stood out, was her daughter, Layla. Layla's 4 years old, and besides being adorable, she was so quiet and well-behaved. And that's not typical for a day for me. And normally when kids come into our office, they're not quiet. And bless their hearts, they've been waiting long enough to become hungry and bored and tired. And that's not a good combination for anybody, but especially for small children. But not Layla. She sat at the desk and she was just working with some paper. She was tearing it up into small pieces and coloring it and arranging it very carefully. And finally curiosity got the best of me, and I asked, "What are you doing?" And in this meek, sweet little voice, she said, "Making stuff." And I said, "What are you making?" And without even looking up, she said, "Sandwiches." Sandwiches. These little pieces of paper could have represented anything in the world to this girl, but the thing she wanted them to be most were sandwiches. She put some together and handed it to her mom and said, "Here you go, Mommy." And then she put another one together and looked up at me and said, "Would you like a sandwich?" And at this point, I'm doing all I can to keep my tears back, and I forced a smile on my face, and I said, "I would love a sandwich, thank you." But it cut straight through me. I mean, I couldn't imagine what it would feel like as a parent to not be able to give your child a sandwich. To know that in their fantasy land of color and paper, they could make anything in the world that they wanted to. The thing they'd want most is a sandwich. I couldn't imagine how a parent must feel to have their child look to them for food and not be able to give it to them. It made me think about my time at the food bank and all the people I'd met. I thought about Mike, who told me that he often skipped meals so that his children would have enough to eat. I thought about the many seniors that I had helped who told me that they didn't have enough money for food and medicine, so every month they had to decide which one to buy. And I thought about Kevin, the disabled vet, whose stomach growled so loud during our interview that it brought shame to his face. You see, before I started with the food bank, whenever the topic of food insecurity or hunger came up, my thoughts always went to the other side of the world. I didn't know how big of an issue food insecurity was here in my own community. I didn't know that, like Layla, in North Texas, 1 in every 4 children are food insecure. That's 1 in every 4 children. Before I started with the food bank, I never saw the face of hunger. I never sat at the same table and looked into the eyes of the hungry. But now that I had, I realized that hunger looks just like my neighbor. Hunger looks just like my grandparents. Hunger looks just like my 1-year-old son. Hunger looks just like the person I see when I look in the mirror every day. So what do the statistics tell us about hunger? I'm not going to put a bunch of numbers on the screen. It's a fascinating study, and I certainly encourage you to look it up. It will humble you. But today I want us to see what the statistics will tell us about Layla's future. So she's 4 years old. Next year when she goes to kindergarten, if Layla is still food insecure, it means that she'll learn less than her peers do. And as she goes through elementary school, if Layla still experiences food insecurity, her math scores will be lower. She'll be more likely to repeat a grade, and she'll have a harder time getting along with her classmates. As she goes through school, if she continues to be food insecure and if she experiences high levels of food insecurity, it could mean that she'll require special educational services, and that'll nearly double her cost of public education. And as she goes into middle school and high school, if she still struggles with food security, then it could mean that creative, sweet little girl never graduates. But the problem of food insecurity is not one that just affects children. I mean, it affects adults as well. I recently heard the term hangry. So hungry you get angry. And they were using it in kind of a cute way. But it made me think about, my wife and I were in the car driving around, and we were talking about some simple subject, like what we needed from the grocery store. And we were both really hungry, And we noticed that we started to get snippy with each other. And we kind of looked at each other and said, wow, we really need to get something to eat. We can all relate to that, right? Maybe you've had a day where you were so busy that you forgot to eat, and by the time you realized it, you were irritable. Imagine feeling like that every day, all day, but not being able to get something to eat. Imagine trying to work at that job that you so desperately need to feed your children, and you want to do a good job. You want to give it your best. But all you can think about is how hungry you are, how hungry your kids are. Food insecurity presents health problems for adults as well. The solution is not more food. Because if we give out food that's not nutritious, it will either make the health problems that people have worse or create new problems for them. And that's why the North Texas Food Bank is so passionate about giving out nutritious food. On average, 1 in every 3 pounds we distribute is a vegetable or a fruit. Because our goal at the food bank is not to fill stomachs, it's to fill lives with hope. It's to nourish people so that they have the hope of a better tomorrow, a healthier tomorrow. What can you do to end hunger? You can donate, you can volunteer, but today I urge you to advocate. Use your voice. Just like I didn't know how serious of an issue food insecurity was before I got involved, there are many people in your circle who don't know how big of an issue it is until you get them involved. Use your vote. Use your vote to make sure that there's money for these programs like SNAP. Use your phone to research these programs and then to contact your congressperson or senator to make sure that they know that you support these programs. I believe that when the children in our community no longer have to worry about food, test scores will go up. And I truly believe that when families don't have to struggle to put food on the table, crime will go down. When our seniors no longer have to decide every month between medicine and food, their health will improve. What would happen if our children, our future, could use their talent and their creativity and their imagination? Not to make sandwiches, but to change the world. It's up to you to find out. Thank you.